In the year 1949, there was a small passenger manifest in Genoa whose typed names and forged stamps would become evidence of a conspiracy that reached from Rome to Buenos Aires. What followed that year was not a single murder, but a crime against memory and justice, a deliberate, organized flight of Nazi fugitives out of defeated Europe into the open arms of a distant republic. This is the true story of how clerics, sympathetic officials, and a welcoming Argentine state stitched together a secret highway for war criminals. The context is immediate. Europe lay in ruins after 1945. Nuremberg had begun to try the most prominent architects of genocide, but thousands of lower and mid-level perpetrators slipped between magistrates and migration stations. Into that breach stepped a web of helpers. In Rome, an Austrian bishop named Alois Hudel and a Croatian priest, Krunoslav Draganovic, used their positions and contacts to arrange identity papers, travel permits, and false Red Cross documentation for fugitives. Routes threaded through sympathetic nodes, the port cities of Genoa and Venice, Franco's Spain, and then Atlantic crossings to Argentina and Chile. Why Argentina? Juan Domingo Perón, consolidating power after 1946, openly courted European immigrants and technicians. His government issued visas, sometimes ignoring background checks, and Argentina's remote southern provinces, especially Bariloche, offered anonymity and landscapes that mimicked parts of Central Europe. Former SS officers, intelligence men, and even notorious figures like Josef Mengele found shelter there. Mengele is documented as arriving in Argentina in 1949 under an assumed identity. Others, Ante Pavelic, Erich Priebke, followed in the late 1940s. Adolf Eichmann would arrive a year later in 1950 under another alias. These were not isolated escapes, but part of a pattern. The conspiracy was bureaucratic and banal as well as brutal. False passports were issued from clerical offices, shipping companies turned a blind eye, and local Argentine immigration agents stamped papers that allowed fugitives to disembark and disappear into German-speaking communities. Survivors and Jewish organizations watched in horror as men who had ordered atrocities settled into ordinary trades: carpenters, farmers, technicians. The moral geography shifted. Towns that should have been safe shelters for refugees instead harbored perpetrators. Opposing them were a tenuous band of investigators and survivors. Holocaust hunters like Simon Wiesenthal began compiling lists, tracing names to house numbers, coaxing neighbors to remember the faces. Allied intelligence teams and Jewish groups exchanged tips with sometimes reluctant Argentine authorities. Tension mounted in whispered confrontations. A local official might claim ignorance, a parish priest might claim charity. The truth, when it did emerge, was messy. Proof came in manifests, letters, and the testimonies of those who had seen uniforms and knew what they meant. Historians have argued over the scale and the name. Some invoked Odessa, an alleged SS escape network. Others emphasize a looser coalition of opportunists and ideologues. The clear fact is this: a transnational mechanism existed, bolstered by institutional blind spots and political will. It allowed men responsible for unspeakable crimes to live out years, sometimes decades, in comfort, while families of victims searched in vain for accountability. This story is more than a catalog of fugitives. It is a study in how legal rupture, ideological sympathy, and administrative complicity can convert migration into impunity. The Argentine chapters of these lives, houses in Bariloche, farms near Buenos Aires, quiet street addresses, became moral battlegrounds. The long aftermath saw some brought to justice, many never tried, and a region's conscience marked by the knowledge that shelter had been offered to men who had betrayed humanity. The Ratlines of the 1940s remain a cautionary tale. The machinery of escape was humble: stamped papers, a friendly official, a waiting ship, but its consequences were vast. In the end, the true crime was not only what these men had done in Europe, but the international collusion that allowed them to vanish across an ocean and, for a time, to evade the law.